Eternal torment, agonized wail of lost souls, demons howling in the endless void. Eventually, all these things lose their charm. But enough about work. Allow me to introduce a man whose talent delights my dark heart. Master of dark sticky fun, your host, Ron Fitzgerald.
You ready for some dark sticky fun? You ready for some dark sticky fun?
All right, everybody. There we go. I'm doing it. I'm flying solo here tonight. The evil Morgoth is a little under the weather, and he is being repaired down in the dungeon. So, how are we? Happy New Year. I think it's the first time we're doing this. I believe it is. So, how's your 2024 treating you? Are we good? Is everything good? We're about to hit the year of the dragon very soon, and that's a good thing. We got dragons. We got dragons. We got dragons. All right. Say hi in the chat. Since it is just me, we're gonna wing trying to read these things. But please check in, and thank you all for being here with me yet again. We have a very special guest tonight, author Nina Ayers, talking about her new book, kind of real, based on real events and fictional true crime, called The Joy of Murder. We're going to bring her on in just a second. She's waiting in the studio here to bring her on, and we'll bring her on in just a second. I wanted to give a little update. I'm still working on the book. I am making progress. It is coming along. It is getting weirder and full of more dark, sticky fun by the day. And hopefully I'll have more updates and things to show you. But it's a process. Again, looking to have the book out, Monstrous Magic, A Career Conjuring Dark Sticky Fun, out in the spooky season this fall sometime will be the book launch. So hang with me and grab one when it's available. I'm sure we'll have some specials and we'll have a big launchy thing. What else I want to tell you? Working on some other projects. I can't really talk about it yet. I haven't been doing a whole lot of other things simply because I just want to crank on the book and get the damn thing done. I just want to get it done at this point. So thank you. Anybody else check in if you're down in there? Tell us where you're watching from, where you're at, how you're doing, and please tell us how the new year is going, and maybe any suggestions on what else you'd like to see here in the show. All right. Remember, if you're just meeting me, just stumbling into this weird live, I'm Ron Fitzgerald, Master of the Dark Realm, actor, Gothic illusionist, and creator of Dark Sticky Fun, bring it out to the world for you guys. If you'd like to support the channel, please like, subscribe, share the crap out of this everywhere to all your friends who love, horror, Halloween, and dark gothy, dark culture stuff. Send it on out there, blast it on out there. I see Nina twitching in her camera on the off. We've had a couple of really great chats, so we could go on for days. We'll try not to. We'll try and keep it right to the book. So are you guys ready? Let me know you're ready down there. Tell me in the chat. If you are ready to bring Nina on. And I think you just need to chant her name and maybe give me some devil horns or something out there. Just devil horns, just Nina, Nina, Nina. And then, yes, that'll do it. It's kind of like an incantation, and then she shows up. Say her name 3 times. It's like Beetlejuice, bang. She's going, oh, by the way, I've got Beetlejuice tickets for sometime later in the May in Chicago. So I'll give you a full report on that. I'm sure it's going to be awesome fun. All right. So where we going? All right. Let's see if I can see. All right. What the heck I'm doing. Here we go. All right. Have we got you? I'm working on it. Ah, there. Yes. Bang. Here we go. Nina. Hello. Can you hear me? We can't hear you. No, 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 no. I can't hear you. You need to turn
How
on your
about
mic.
now?
Yes, that works.
I'm over here clicking buttons.
Ray's on the internet now going, Mike, I can't hear you. Yeah. So thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen of the realm, Nina Ayers, nice round of applause in the chat. Say hi to Nina. Nina, what I might have you do, I don't know if are you looking on either the Evil Book of Face or Tubius Ubius to see what's going on in there? I'm gonna bring up the chat. But if you see anything or you see something you want to address or answer in there, we're gonna try and take some questions later. I don't know.
Oh, no.
I don't know how easy it's going to be able to see all that. So we'll see.
Okay.
All right. I am going to, it's much easier with them work off here. I need a director. I need a staff. Doing this on my own gets a little challenging. So excuse me while I pop out of frame for a minute. I'm looking to bring the chat in. Yes. Comments. Here we go. All right. So we have some people. We know we got people watching. Let me see. Where are you? Can I bring that in? Yes, I can bring that in. Yes. Hi. Can you read that?
No, I can't from my end, but
you can't see it on your end. We're putting it out there.
There we go.
There we go.
Let's see.
And we're checking in. We got people checking in. All right.
My sidekick's not with me tonight, so I'm solo.
No, she's not there.
No, not this evening.
All right. Well, Nina, let's jump into this then, because I think we are ready. Well, tell everybody, a little bit about yourself and how you got started writing, and then we can kind of go from there, and then we'll talk specifically about your new book and your appearances for Joy of Murder.
Hey, I'm Nina Ayers, and I started writing this book about 1.5 years ago. COVID. Had nothing better to do basically with my time, and I've been in
a lot of books, didn't it?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah. That's kind of when I started thinking about mine more.
Because it's like you're cooped up, you have nothing better to do, and it was either fictionally start killing people or kill my husband. So I thought it was probably safer and wiser to put it down on paper versus killing him.
Keeps you out of the legal system.
Yeah, the legal system has a little something to do with that.
Yay. Yeah, pesky
Even
role.
though he seems to think I'm poisoning him every single day, but I'm really not, just to let you know. But the book is it's about a true serial killer here in Illinois. His real name is Paul Runge.
And this is a Chicago connection, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It happened back in the 80s and early 90s. I found it very interesting about how people weren't aware of anything. They were just letting strangers in their homes, just opening their doors. And my book is basically to let you know, even though it's a good-looking person on the porch, it still can be a serial killer. And you really have to be careful who you open your doors to, or this day and age, help, unfortunately. And it's sad to say.
Kind of like Ted Bundy, right? I mean, he was a good-looking guy. Women liked him, and that he was a maniac. He was a killer. Yeah.
Yes, very much so. And this gentleman, I want to call him a gentleman at the early part. Okay. He was normal. Went to school. Didn't brutalize animals. But then there was a monster inside of him that grew from the age of 17. When he took his first victim, she was 13 and did horrible things to her for a whole weekend. They incarcerated him from 17 until he was 24. And of course, being incarcerated all those years as a young man, he became the monster that I wrote about. And basically,
the prison system seems to just teach them how to be better monsters sometimes if they then get out without being rehabilitated later. Yeah.
Exactly. There was no rehabilitation for him, unfortunately, but he did meet a woman. They married, and unfortunately, she was never convicted of anything, but it's suspected she was involved.
She was complicit. Did she help him out with these?
Well, They never had any proof of it. And in my book, I never, subject
Mhm.
onto her, basically.
Right. Now, how did you
But
get the idea to kind of mix? So it's basically it's fictional but based on true events, correct?
yes, yes.
Hmm.
It starts out about him, the book does, and it goes into how he became the monster that he is and why he's that way with his the
Hmm.
mother that I made up for him.
So it takes you on
And
the journey of him
yes.
descending more into this. That's interesting. That for those of you who like true crime, you've got to get a copy of this because that sounds like a very dark ride.
It is one because it brings out some beautiful characters, which you're thinking beautiful for a serial killer. But the killers it brings out, it's going to be in my second book, and I have 4 books to this.
Hmm.
And those characters are some really whoppers and fun ones. Uh,
Yeah.
I have one character. Her name's Miss Carol, which is my sister's favorite character, and I'm finding out a lot of people like Miss Carol.
Oh, there
She's
you go.
kooky. She's
Hmm.
zany. She's very intelligent, very conniving, and that's all I'm going to say about because I'll wind up giving the whole story on her.
Right. No spoilers. Now that you and I
Exactly.
were talking about this in kind of our very long pre-interview.
Yes.
When we tried to launch this a couple of times, we tried to bring in this interview, and there was just all kinds of stuff not working out. So I'm very thrilled that we are actually bringing it, out to everybody right now. But that character is the one that's kind of based on you, isn't it?
And that seems to be the analysis is from everybody.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I
So you
didn't.
weren't really aware of that as you were writing it, you
No,
said, right?
no,
Okay.
I was not. She just kind of came to life on the paper, and I just felt that, she was a chameleon. She was easy to blend with, but boy, don't get on her bad side.
Yeah.
And it's where
Don't
you
piss
have
her
to
off,
watch
right?
her. Yes, yes, a true evil person. But I
Mhm.
mean, I guess you could say I have an evil side, but
Well, a take no BS attitude is not a bad thing.
but
You
there's
know.
also some other beautiful characters in Miss Becky, which I made her as a counselor in the story. She recognizes that there's something wrong with my fictional character. Paul Runge turns into AKA Peter or Pete Price, not Peter. Never
Mhm.
call him Peter.
Gotcha.
That's the little spoiler in the book. That's the only one I'll give.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. You can give us little character things here and there. No spoilers on the plot, though.
Trying not to,
Mhm.
but I'm not very well with keeping secrets, as my husband would tell you. Maybe that's the reason why I'm slowly giving him poison. Oh, I let the cat out of bag. Sorry.
Well, that's just the plot of your next book, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
The
what else do you
husband.
want to tell everybody about Joy of
Um,
Murder?
well, right now we're doing a small little book tour. We're going to be in Barnes and Nobles on February the 17th in
Yeah,
Springfield,
tell them
Illinois.
Springfield. There you go. Make sure you
Yes.
mention exactly
Oh,
where
yeah.
those are at, because you've got several of those. Continue to tell everybody about
Yes. And then I'm going to be in Taylorville, Illinois at it's called Sydney's Little Shop and Vinyl. It's
those.
another
Hmm.
little bookstore. I'm doing the big bookstores, but in between those, I'm still going to hit the mom and pop little bookstores because I think they're important for the community to
They
have
are.
a nice.
Don't you think they're vital to the health,
Yes,
the whole?
very,
Yeah.
very vital to keep them alive and thriving, and keep them in business because, like Barnes and Nobles, they're a conglomerate. They're around what 48,000 Barnes and Nobles, in which I didn't know until I started taking this little journey,
Hmm.
and that's worldwide. But all these little mom and pop little stands, I would love to hit as many of those as possible. Just not just to get my name out, but just to let people know that there's nostalgic of all of these shops that's been around for years that nobody even knew they were there, and they have a lot of rare books. I don't know about you, Ron, but I love to find a good rare book that nobody has read in over 100 years,
Hmm.
and even
Yeah.
if it's about astrology or something. It's
Yes.
just
Well,
the
there's
way.
nothing quite like a very tangible, old book that's got some
Yeah.
things. Maybe there's not an audio book, maybe it's not out electronically or anything like that. And
No,
there's just
a lot of,
something wonderful and tangible. Even the smell of an old book is so intoxicating,
yes, it is. And the writing styles, how they would address their words and their meanings. It was so much different 100 years ago versus today. So I
Mm-hmm.
love finding those books and just reading the styles and the different ways that they express things. Like I said, it could be about mathematics, astrology, or anything.
Right.
I find those very intriguing.
Right, as do I. I like to look at things, and obviously, being an illusionist, I have a lot of magic, theatrical magic books.
Oh
But
yes,
since a lot of I have an interest in and inspired the whole thing, since it's gothic illusion and based on horror and everything, and the metaphysical, I like to delve into books like that.
oh yes, very
Yeah,
much so.
the real magic, the metaphysical stuff, and that's fascinating to me. And that
Oh
gets into
yeah.
a whole other realm of weird unto itself, and I love that stuff. You know.
And that's how I am. And that's why I'm
Mhm.
excited to go to the Cindy Lynn's little bookshop there in Taylorville, Illinois on it'll be February the 24th because they have some nostalgic old books supposedly in there. And that's what I'm looking for. Not just for me just to be there, but just to check out the nostalgic. And they also have vinyl records, which is, I grew up with vinyl records.
It's a thing
So,
again. I mean, it's become like
yes,
a. I think it's very fetishy to me. I mean, it's vinyl, it's records. I mean, everybody kind of misses the physical format.
yes.
The streaming gives you great access, but if you're going to own it and everything, I know a lot of people that still love DVDs and
Oh,
CDs,
yeah.
and they love their media, their physical media, especially kind of in this genre, horror, fantasy,
Oh, yeah.
sci-fi. We love our physical media, and I'm glad you guys do.
Oh, yeah.
um, yeah, so that is cool. So they have vinyl, and it's like, yeah, it's kind of, there's just something about, it's like actual printed books, and
Oh, yeah. And I love to listen to the crickling of that album when you first put that needle on there. Just
mm-hmm.
to hear that crackling sound, it's like, oh, that just brings back so many great memories and
I
so forth.
remember in the 80s reading Anne Rice's the Interview with the Vampire,
The
and like the
vampire,
vampire
yeah.
was stopped with a 12-inch version of Prince's Erotic City on repeat on my turntable.
Yep. There you go.
It just seemed to fit the vibe, and
Exactly.
and it was like vinyl in a big chunky book. So there is something, it's just part of the experience. It's one thing to get the information, the knowledge, but you're reading, for pleasure, something like this, then you almost want that sensory experience all through that.
Right. Oh yeah. My partner in crime, who's not here tonight, when she read the book,
Hmm.
she was listening to, I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was The Dead Daisies. And she says it was ironic because she was going from one set of listening to music that was kind of heavy metal to something mellow. And she
Hmm.
finished the book to Queen. And she goes,
Yeah,
wow, it was a
yeah.
roller coaster. And she said the music just put the tone to the book. And in my book, I mentioned a lot of different kind of music, like from Neil Diamond to Barry
Mhm.
Manilow to Pantera. To I think there's even Kiss in it or something. It's just something that my serial killers was listening to. But I love to
Mm.
listen to music, so I incorporated that into my books, I should say.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I remember, just to get into a mood, when I was playing the lead character Magus in the movie Magus for
Yes.
John Lachago, as I was studying my script, I was listening to Marilyn Manson's Antichrist Superstar the whole
Yep.
time. That just seemed to be the right headspace for that character,
Yes.
and it really helped get me into the mood for that. So I know exactly what you're talking about. It was like listening to Prince when you're reading
Oh,
vampire novels, especially Anne Rice. I mean, the way she wrote it.
oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's interesting you brought up about Marilyn Manson. My
Mm.
late mom loved Marilyn Manson,
Yes.
And when she passed away, she was 70 years old, and she was out there just listening to Marilyn Manson, and people's
Chamberlain
like,
Manson. Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're like a 70-year-old, digging, Marilyn Manson, and she's like, yeah, have you ever listened to his lyrics? I mean, and
Hmm.
the way he changes his music, it sounds one point could be like operatic, from like Lost Boys, the
Yeah.
soundtrack,
Hmm.
Marilyn Manson, to
Yeah.
Salem's Witches, Marilyn Manson. It,
Hmm.
it it it's just the way he changes his sound and his lyrics. And when I'm writing these books, I want something that has something that's changeable, that inspires. Okay, not that I'm trying to inspire my inner killer, I guess you can
Hmm.
say, but at the same sense, it's an easier flow to put it on paper with
Yeah.
music. And
Yeah.
it doesn't all have to be heavy metal. It could be, I can listen to Mozart, I can listen to Bach, I can listen to, you know,
Mhm.
any of that, Madame Butterfly, Jimi Hendrix. It all just inspires me to write.
Yeah. It helps that vibe come through.
Yes,
Yeah. Do you ever
yes.
find it distracting listening to music while you're writing? I mean, just personally, I find it kind of distracting. I have to have it low and even shut it off sometimes and just sit so I can think it out straight how I want to put it on the page.
Well, with me, pretty much so now, because my husband was in a band. It was called Odium, which is pertaining to hatred.
Hmm.
And for years, whenever I was trying to concentrate on anything, I would just listen to the guys play, and it's like it was easy for me to just to jot down a thought or a gesture of what I want, because I've got several other books that's going to be coming out later on in the year.
Right.
This
Now,
book is
Joy of
very
Murder is your
graphic.
first, correct?
Yes, yes. This one's called Joy of Murder: Life of a Serial Killers. The second one's
Hmm.
going to be called Holly's Murders, which I'm finishing up now. It should
Hmm.
be out mid-March or April.
Excellent.
Uh,
Quick
the
follow up.
third,
That's good.
yes, and it follows up with the first one, but then it goes into the third one, which is called Carol's Revenge.
Hmm.
And the final
No,
book, which I can go ahead,
no, I was just going to ask you: are any of these related? Are they in a series?
it's in a
Oh, are
series.
they? It is a
Yes,
series. Okay. Yes, that's what
yep,
I thought. Hmm.
yep. And the fourth one, which I haven't decided if I'm going to kill off everybody yet, but it leaves me with an openness. It's called Detective Martin's Journeys.
Hmm.
So to leave it that way, there's a lot of cold case files out there and a lot of murders and
Hmm.
such, that my books is to basically make people aware and give them awareness of what's going on around them, but the same sense to let them know that there are serial killers out there and there's more than what people averagely know about.
Yeah, I think you're right on that. I think they're very well could be. Plus, as they still don't have, they have more in the way of a national database of
Yes,
criminals and fingerprints evidence, things like that. But they still, from state to state, sometimes a serial killer can go on, or
yes.
similar crimes, but they haven't connected the dots. They haven't connected those cases yet, have they?
No, they haven't. And the thing, the law enforcement every year, it seems like they're getting better at their data, like you said, and they're getting
Hmm.
more equipped, and their studies is coming in a little bit better than what it used to be.
Yes.
But having said that, it's a lot of work, and I admire a lot of these detectives, because a lot of it sets on them. It's a lot of weight on their shoulders, knowing that they haven't closed a case or there's multiple cases with it, and the trauma that they go through of all the victims that they experience.
Hmm.
For me, reading about what I read about in some of the dossiers and some of the reports, it was disturbing what this one person, just one person I wrote about, what he did. And I can only imagine these detectives, what they go through day in and day out, reading these reports and investigating this, and the trauma of going back to see the families. By all means, my book's not to
Yeah.
hurt anybody, but it's to also make people aware. Don't open your door if you don't know that person. That's why you have a lock. Talk to it. The
Yeah.
old cliche in the horror movies, and they hear something and they say, hello, is there somebody there? Well,
Right.
obviously, if you hear something breaking or you hear something that doesn't sound right, don't hesitate. Call 911.
Well, yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, it just goes to show people need to listen to their intuition. And if you get a
Yes.
red flag or a bad vibe on someone, you better damn
Yes.
well pay attention to that, right?
Exactly. You know,
Yeah. It's always been my policy, you know?
yeah, exactly. You know, and I had this one woman, she says, well, I don't want to call 911 because what if it's my cat or dog? And then I feel stupid. I said, wouldn't you rather feel stupid versus being dead or hurt to where if you would have called 911, they can either A, investigate you immediately and catch this person, or B, maybe save your life because you called versus somebody finding you days later.
Right. And there's also a matter of that being on record then
Yes.
that that there is this pattern of behavior from this
Yes.
individual. Yeah.
And you know, people are like, well, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do this. Well, unfortunately, this was society. Everyone has these cameras now. Everyone's videotaping. You know,
Lots of video,
it's a good,
lots of photos. Yeah.
yeah, it's a good thing, but sometimes it's like, okay, you're doing it for the wrong purposes. You just witnessed somebody screaming help, and you're doing a selfie on yourself, watching yourself fall down or rack yourself, and you find that humorous, but you can hear somebody saying help. And if you just turn the camera around, you can be visually helping a police officer find a person that was
Mhm.
kidnapped or just got murdered or something. It just takes
Let
that
me
1 second.
I want to ask you this: do you, in the book, since it's based on a real case, and you have lots of
Mhm.
information, documentation on that, on the real case, do you get into the procedural end of it a lot as you go through the book?
I try not to have any contact with any of the law enforcements, to be honest with you, because
Well,
I
do
like,
you include that in the story? Is what
right, I
I
included into
yeah,
the story a little bit. I did
yeah,
put some photographs that's in there, which was from old cases. The photographs is to
yeah.
just to show a person. Yeah, you see a cop standing there looking at you, but at the same sense, that's the brief second that emotion he has to collaborate his thoughts after seeing something traumatizing. You know,
Mhm.
it's not like he's just going to get out and run after somebody because there's nobody to run after because that body's laid there for a couple of days
Right.
or at least a week. And they got to try to figure out and put those pieces together. Why, who, where, you know?
Well, there's so many, true crime and fictional television
Yes,
shows that go heavily into the procedure. I mean, that's why they call them procedurals because they go
yes.
heavily into the case file, and going through it. So I was wondering how much you did that going through your book, or you're concentrating more than on the characters and letting them tell their story as they go through that.
In the beginning with Paul, I did a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how it began with him, he escaped in Naperville for 30 to 45 minutes, and he was being transported from prison to Department of Human Services facility in which I worked for. So it came across our desk, and when it came
Mm-hmm.
across, I was not intrigued, but I was curious about why he was being transported and what he did. And
Yeah.
then after I found out what he did and how he manipulated the guard to where she helped him escape, it was like, this man. And I mean, when you look at him, you would never have thought in a million years that this
Right.
guy was a serial killer.
No. No. Exactly. That. I mean, that. I think the less obvious you are. I mean, they're always looking at, people that have an unusual or weird look or something like that because they
Yeah.
have someone's attention for that. But it's the people that can really just walk in under the radar. And then,
Yes.
sometimes those are the ones you really have to watch.
And,
So what
and
got you, can I ask you a question? What got you, was it working in that career, or that got you to writing this, or were you already interested in that when you got there into
already
that?
interested.
Okay, that's yeah.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that part of the reason you took that job?
Actually, no, I took the
Yeah,
job because I wanted to help people.
that's
Uh,
cool. That's very nice. Yeah,
and,
yeah.
and if anybody's ever worked for Department of Human Services, I worked for public aid. I worked for public health.
Mhm.
Uh, I didn't work for
Not an
mental
easy
health.
gig. Yeah,
Hmm?
not an easy gig.
No, it's not. I
Mhm.
was a psychiatric nurse for 5 years at the Moon Center at Doctors Hospital in Springfield, Illinois. I did that for nearly
You could
five
have been
years.
taking care of Michael Myers in Haddonfield, had you? I mean,
No, you're absolutely right. Even though that's fictional,
Yeah.
you know, and that's just the thought. When I
Yeah.
was working in there, we had the criminally sane on one side, and you had on the other side, you had normal people. I consider normal, but they had mental issues. It was depression, or loneliness, or anxiety, or
Mhm.
those I consider, no offense, they're going to be normal one day. And
Right.
it's the person, and
Treatable.
medication helps.
Yeah.
Even the schizophrenics with medication, they have a normal life. But when they stop taking their medication, of course, they become a different person, just like
Right.
a
I
multiple
mean,
personality person.
that's the thing, and I've known some people on meds, on psychiatric meds, and they're just fine, and they feel good when
Oh,
they're on them, but they have a great resistance to having to take those.
yes.
I have
And
seen
once
them then go off their meds, and it's not a good outcome for them.
no,
So
it's not
yeah.
at all. Now, on the criminally sane side that they would bring over from McFarland's, or for some of the
Hmm.
bigger institutions, prisons, to have them evaluated, and somebody from DHS would come and do their evaluations. That was kind of terrifying. Us women, we were told to put our hair back into ponytails, no makeup, to wear big, bulky clothes or oversized clothes to hide our bodies. Uh, and that's terrifying. It really is. People are like, oh no, it's no big. It actually is. When you're in a room with a serial rapist, yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary, because
Yeah.
it takes just 1 second, and
Well,
he's
were they now? If we're in a situation like that, is there anything between you and them, a barrier, or
no,
are they? No, you're just
no.
in
When
the
you're
room with them,
when you're
right?
dealing with
Wow.
them, there is a guard.
Hmm.
Yes. Back in those days, I'm talking the early 90s. Yeah, they did some restraints, but not like they do today. The restraints today is a whole hell of a lot better than what it was back then.
So they have muscle restraints. I mean, did
Yes,
you ever have
yes.
any trouble when you were in the room with somebody?
I had one experience. The gentleman there's a wall between us, and it's got wire between it. He was
Hmm.
following me back and forth, and like I said, there's no makeup, hair's up, bulky clothes, and he
Hmm.
kept following me, and I never thought about what was going on. And I left the room, and he went crazy. He
Really?
started taking chairs to bust the window, and he was thinking that him and I was married.
Hmm.
And I was like, okay. And they made me leave the unit. They made me leave the floor until that particular patient was gone back to prison for whatever reason he
A
did.
wise precaution. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. And that was the first time I ever really experienced something like that. And I think I was 27 years old at the time. And it was like, I didn't even do anything for this guy to be obsessive. And it only took a second for somebody to become obsessive over you.
Well,
That's
yeah.
their
If they're
mentality.
living in their own fantasy
Yeah,
about it includes you,
exactly.
then yeah, yeah. I can see where that would happen. Now, is it? Do you have a scene like that in the book, or that's certainly something
Well,
I would hope to see in one of your books somewhere in there, because I mean
it's
that's a personal
coming.
experience, and that's pretty visceral. That I
Yes.
think that would make a lot of women just kind of get chills,
To
go,
that.
cringe by thinking about being in a situation like that, especially work or not. I mean, you don't want to be in the room with that dude.
Well, here's the sad thing about about that gentleman that I just spoke of.
Hmm.
I found out a year later they let him go on technicality.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I'm at Kmart, and I was with my mother-in-law getting into the car, and this guy kept staring at me. And I had makeup on, the whole 9 yards, and he just
Hmm.
kept staring. And I never forget a face. I'll forget your name, but I'll never forget a face.
Yeah.
And he was lunging after us. I got in the car and took off. Well, looked on the news that night. That gentleman was back in custody for raping a woman. He was a serial rapist. They finally convicted him with DNA.
Wow. Did they not have DNA evidence?
Nope.
Prior to that? Well, if that was in the 90s, that was they were just
Early,
starting to
yeah,
use a lot of the DNA evidence at that point,
yes.
right? Yeah.
It was still early in the stages.
Mhm.
So technology has advanced that much. And it's, it's a wonderful thing for a lot of that.
Well,
And
I
like I
mean,
said,
it is because you want those markers. Look at all the people, a lot of black men, and individuals of color and things
yes,
like that and minorities, and they've been convicted out of forced confessions, and then the DNA
yes,
cleared. So I'm glad we have
exactly.
empirical evidence that now you can say, well, there's somebody was there and did that or not.
And that's the whole thing. A lot of people that are in prison, like me and my husband just had this conversation. If they're on death row, we'll put it, for instance,
Hmm.
the my thought is this: if you have 100% of that evidence that shows it's clearly them, 100%,
Right.
or even if it's 90%, you're not going to change anything at 90%. They're still going to be convicted. They're still the ones that did it.
Hmm.
Then follow through with it.
Hmm.
Now, here's the thing. If you have reasonable doubt for those, that's under 70%, under 70,
Right.
then you need to go into that case and investigate it. Because that person could be
Yeah.
an innocent person. And you're right. It is a
Yeah.
lot of the minorities that's on death row or incarcerated for life sentences that didn't do the crime.
Exactly. And we even witness testimony can be pretty unreliable at times as well.
Exactly.
So I think the scientific markers, the genetics, the DNA,
Yes.
fingerprints, that's
Yes.
what you want. You want physical evidence to back up whatever else is going on there.
And it's just like my character, he was on death row. He was supposed to be executed,
Mhm.
2024, I think it was, or 28 or something in there. But they had a new case that came up, so extended it out. So having that happen, that just prolongs his death sentence. Well, when Pat Quinn came into office, he did away with the death penalty and
Yeah.
just commuted it to life in sentence, And this guy, he did it. He is guilty. He should have been
Mhm.
put to death. Because now he's coming out of the woodwork and he's saying that instead of 7 to 8 plus people, it's about 50 women he killed and
Wow.
men. Yeah, because they were prostitutes up in Chicago, right off of Michigan
Well,
Avenue
again,
area.
a very vulnerable community,
Yes,
and
yes,
and some of the many times I think the serial killers have heard more than a few and seen a few stories about how they were targeting the women and men in that
yeah,
community, and they again, it's a community they're not worried about. The police
what
I
we
think
miss.
it's risky already because of
Yeah,
what they're doing and who they're doing it with. So it seemed like at times they weren't getting the investigation and the manpower they needed to connect those cases and do the work there.
exactly.
Yeah.
I've been watching some of these ID channels and talking to folks on social media. A
Mhm.
lot of them don't really want to talk to people who's not in the situation, but a lot of the
Yeah.
prostitutes, as I'm finding out, that they do texts back and forth about telling about a John that's a good John or a bad John. Stay away from this one because it's too freaky deaky, or they're abusive. They're into bondage, which is not a good bondage, and that's kind of important for that lifestyle so they can communicate with one another, but also they also try to
Mhm.
communicate with the authorities to let them know, hey, there's a man out there that's doing this stuff, because it could be a potential serial killer.
Yeah. Right.
And like
Right.
we expressed, this is a type of it is a job. It may not be the typical job that you go and clock in for 9 to 5 and you get a paycheck and all this, but to them, that's their livelihood. That's the life they chose. Maybe it's not what they wanted to do per se, but
Right.
you
Right.
know, I have talked to prostitutes
Mhm.
to ask them in the past, which I found out that they're more escorts is what they call themselves, not so much as prostitutes
Well, that
anymore.
seems to be the higher end of the industry where,
Yes,
you're also into clients with better pay and
yeah,
clients that aren't just right off the street. And
Yes.
I mean, it's not to say it's like, like we were talking about earlier, they could look great, they could have money, and they could still
Yep.
be,
Yeah.
a danger, a clear and present, danger and a serial killer underneath. But it seems
Yep.
like once you get into the upper echelons of that, it at least appears to be safer for the the people working in
You
that
would
part
think.
of the sex industry. Yeah.
Again, like I said, I spoke to a few of them in that industry, and that's how I found out about certain things. And I was like, wow. And I'm trying to incorporate some of that into my book, but
Is that
to a
in there? Do you
degree.
go into that community or into that kind of
Well,
situation in the book?
socially talking to a few of them, yes, but
Mhm.
I'm kind of
So
keeping
was
it
that
back.
in a research kind of purpose?
Yeah,
When
just so I'm,
yeah,
I'm being a little bit accurate about a few things
yeah.
and so forth. But right now my books is fixated into the 80s and 90s. The second book starts out back in the 50s and a little bit of the 60s, 70s, goes up to the 80s and 90s.
Hmm.
So you understand about Holly because it's called Holly's Murder. So it's about her and her life to become where her and Pete are together. And then you get the story about Carol, which goes from Carol from the 90s to 2000 to 2010 in the third book.
That's really interesting how you have them laid out like that.
Well,
Will there be more in the trilogy? Will it be a trilogy of books then when you're done, or will that story then? Do you have room or the desire to continue that story that starts with your book now, Joy of Murder?
well, when we get to the fourth book, we'll see what happens.
Hmm.
Because I don't know yet. I haven't gotten that far, but I'm trying to. I would like to put some more awareness to people in the fourth book about other serial killers here in Illinois, especially because there's a lot of them, and not
Well,
just
certainly.
men,
I mean,
women.
yeah, the very famous cases like that have come out of here. I mean, Dahmer came down
Macy.
and looked for men in the in Chicago, and
Hmm.
Gacy, of course, is one
Yep.
of the they're still uh, making documentaries and things
Yep.
about him. I've got a filmmaker friend of mine, John Boronsky, and he's made documentaries on
Right.
many of these people, and so really it's interesting, and it seems like there's just more and more of the true crime culture out there. I know a lot of people. I know a lot of women that love to read these books, and
Yes.
I guess it's what's like a horror movie or something like that. In a literary sense, you can then read about this and it's safe because you're detached from it. It's
Right.
not, but it's also, I think, it can be very frightening when you're reading about real world, things that, have happened and the kind of people that, can be out there lurking in society.
Exactly. And most of these people that I've done some studies on and research, they could be sitting right next to you once you're in a restaurant, and you would never even think
Right.
this woman's going home tonight. And I keep joking about poisoning my husband, and that's what they literally do. They go home and they slowly poison their husband or their
Hmm.
mother or their kids, for that matter. And it's
Hmm.
like, wow, these people are actually really doing this. It's like, and nobody notices it. Nobody puts anything together. It's like, how could you not see the signs?
Yeah. Well,
You know,
they,
and
they don't
you know,
go through it, right?
I'm sorry, what was that?
I said sometimes they don't, and then it's too late. And
Exactly, and people they want to come down the police and blame the police. It was all their fault. Well, technically, no, it's not just the police's fault. It's society as well, because
yeah,
you could see it. You knew something was
mhm,
wrong, but you just wanted to close that blind eye to it
yeah,
and and push the blame to somebody else.
hmm,
And I do commend what these folks do, because, like I said, they have to get in the mind of that killer. They have to, like I said, go to that why. Why did they take this person's life? How did they take this person's life? And who? You know? And
and from an author's point of view, like yours, I mean, how far do you go down that mental rabbit hole to write those characters? Then, I mean, are you trying to get into their headspace and try and understand it in a way? I mean, or you just kind of, because I just personally, I think that would, it's you know, no matter how steeped in dark culture you are or anything, I think it's kind of hard to get to that same place to know how they connect the dots. You can kind of see some of that later, or it'll come out in their interviews and the case files, things like that. But I think I don't know. I'm interested. You tell us how you kind of get into that headspace, and how far down that rabbit hole can you, or do you go to get into the mindset of a murderer?
When I start to write these, okay, for instance, we talked about Miss Carol, and everyone thinks it's my character. The reason why they think it's my character is about me is because the klutziness, the dinginess, the forgetfulness, and all that. Okay, but when it comes to the killing part, which you'll learn later, and that's how I'm gonna leave it. But my other characters, we'll talk about Holly. That's brutal. She's a very brutal woman. She takes a hammer to someone's hands and makes it into a hamburger.
Wow.
And feeds it to the pig.
Yeah.
And people are like, how did you come up with that? I'm like, well, I was envisioning how to basically dispose of a body. If I was to dispose of one, to get away with it. And it doesn't mean that I've done it, obviously, but I had to sit here and really think about the human body and how to dispose of everything and where to dispose of it and to get away with it.
Yeah.
And a lot of these serial killers, that's what their mentality is. They think about it, and some of them don't even think about it. They just do by accident, and they're like, okay, I need to get rid of this, and they just throw it in the woods, or they do something like that. But if you're really wanting to get rid of a body and you want to get away with this for years and decades, you need to come up with something more inventive than just putting it in the woods and just hope to God nobody finds it. And 9 times out of 10, what happens? Somebody finds the body.
That's why the Sweeney Todd and Mrs. Lovett meat pies. What a great way to get rid of a body, and you make some cash on the side. What more could you want?
Exactly. Yeah. And matter of fact, I think I probably was watching Sweeney Todd one night when I was coming up with one of my characters.
Come on down to the Ted Bundy meat shop.
Yes.
The Ted Bundy bake shop. Yeah. There you go.
Now, whenever my family hears like The Simpsons or Family Guy or something like that playing in my room, that means I'm trying to come out of my mind where I'm at writing. And cartoons, believe it or not, it works for me.
Does that allow you then to separate and pull out of that mode? Yeah.
Just leave it alone. Otherwise, there was one time I was in here for a week in my room writing, and I just really couldn't get the killings out of my head. It was like, okay, I've got to make this kill good. I made it. And it's, I know you're probably thinking it's twisted, but at the same sense, it had to be expressed the way to finish in the book.
No, I get that. I mean, wanting to break that mindset or go back and forth if you want out of that mood. I mean, I can watch horror movies and then turn right around and start watching, stand-up comedy. I love stand-up. Exactly. And, especially if it's been a tough go, about something, there's nothing like just, hang out, glass of wine, and stand up. That'll you need a good laugh now and then. Yeah.
Now, I watched a lot of these here documentaries on serial killers and stuff, and I watched some interviews about serial killers. And what I've noticed and their expressions never change. You can't tell if they're happy or sad. Their expressions are the same. It's kind of bleak. But I also noticed when they're killing, it's like they can't wait for the next kill and the next kill and the next thrill of it. And it's like, where do you draw the line from being a human being and just a pure monster?
Well, I think it's like any sort of obsession or addiction where they need more the next time to get the same thrill out of it. They seem to want to up the stakes and even get into the face of the authorities of the police and go, hey, I got another one. What are you going to do about it? And although intriguing psychologically, Nobody you want running around out there. Yeah.
No,
No.
no, you don't. And I feel for the families, because especially the ones that never know what happened to their loved ones,
Well,
and they're,
exactly. When somebody just vanishes and that's it,
Mhm.
and there's no closure for them. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So in my book, I gave some closure, what I thought was respectful to a few victims,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as to the prostitutes, explaining what happened to them, but also that they were all found by police in their detective work, and their admiration to put a closure, so it's not a cold case.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
in
let's see.
reality,
I want to
hmm,
see. Finish that thought. I want to see. I want to say to the audience again. Put a big couple of giant uppercase Q's in there, and so we know you have a question. It's hard for me to see it on the little chat, and I want to pull some stuff up. Are you up for answering some questions from the audience?
sure.
All right, great. Great. Yeah, I wish your helper was there. She could be pulling it up on a
Yeah,
screen for us or something. Yeah. Now, give me a second here. And
sure.
continue thought while I look and I'll pull one up for us.
Okay.
There we go. No, go ahead and talk for a minute.
Sure, no problem. Like I was saying, everyone wants to, put negatives toward the police, like I was saying, and the detectives, but you really gotta, commend their job. They go into this here thing to try to protect and serve. Granted, some of them take it to extremes. By all means, I'm not trying to say that that's the way to act, but
Right.
some of these detectives that are out there trying to solve these murders or an arson or robbery or something in that sense, you have to give them some time, but yet you got to give them some help. You really do, and just the little pieces of help does help solve a case.
Yes.
And people are like, "Oh, I don't want to get involved. I don't want no retaliation." Well, it won't be retaliation if that person next comes and murders you or vandalizes your home or does the arson to you. And it wasn't because you helped them out, it's because you didn't say anything and they continue to do what they do. So you got to look at that aspect. But in fact, with my book, I was trying to make it like the Naperville scene, which I think I changed it to Joliet in the book.
Did
The
you?
police are trying to get the two convicts that escaped with him, as well as himself, with the prison guard that helped him escape from prison. In that 35 minutes, I made it to where the police wasn't about to give up. They found the two convicts. They also found the serial killer with now the ex guard that's now serving a prison term. I think she received 10 to 15
No.
years in prison for helping him escape. So I mean, they did their job, and luckily they were on top of doing their job, and they put these people back into prison, because unfortunately they, like you said, would be back out on the streets doing havoc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I want to say hi to a few people in the chat. John Ullman, Texas Dead Man. Hello. Thanks for joining us and everyone else. And another author, a friend of mine. I don't know if you know her, Teresa Dunn.
It doesn't ring a bell. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, she's tends to be at a lot of the other same places. I think that we met at the Dark History and Horror convention.
Like I said, I'm horrible with names. I'm better with faces.
Right. Oh yeah. Yes. Well, when you meet a lot of people, faces.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can be the same sometimes. So, but anyway, thank you everybody for being out there. I'm not catching any questions if they're out there. Last call on questions. If you have a specific question for Nina about her book or upcoming books, throw it in there now, or you're just going to have to wait for the book. Now, the book is out, though, correct?
Yes, it's in Barnes and Noble. You can get it online at Walmart. There's several different locations you can get it. I think it's in 16 or 17 different countries now. I'm
awesome.
basically doing a lot of my book tours in Barnes and Nobles, but I'm trying to hit the mom and pop little bookstores as well. I'm doing some Comic-Cons. So that
So
is coming up
are you
throughout.
Wisconsin? Who you got coming up?
There's one in, I think it's either March or April at the Indiana Con.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm doing one that's down in Houston. I think it's called Monsters of Horror Con down there. And then the end of the year and let's see, October, it's Scarefest. I'm going to be one of the speakers for 2 days.
Oh yeah, isn't that down in Tennessee, Kentucky? Where's that that one at?
Kentucky, yes, Lexington, Kentucky.
Lexington. Right. I've not done that one yet. I'm going to have to contact them. I hear a lot of great things about.
Oh yes, that would be awesome if you and I can just share the stage.
that I'd be more than happy to do that. We could, we'll pack the bus and go on down.
There we go.
That'll be fun. All right. Is there anything else? Where can people find you? You told them the outlets for the books, Walmart online, places like that.
Yes.
Amazon, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, Amazon, Kindle, Nook. All you gotta do is just type in "Joy of Murder" by Nina Ayers, and it'll all pop up for you.
And where can they find you on the socials?
Right now, you can go to Facebook. I have a Nina's fan page, and you can find me there. I try to update it every day, if not every other day, to let you know what's happening with the book, where I'm going to be located at, what's happening, and just put some goofy pictures out there. I love to hear from everybody. I would, people are like, do you get negative responses about the book? I have one lady, I call her my church lady.
Yeah.
She tells me about, Jesus Christ and all this, but yet she bought my book. And I told her, I says, well, there is a 30-day, guarantee to return the book because you're in a book club and you didn't apparently say you like it, but yet you're still conversing about it and asking me questions about it. And she goes, well, you really need to find God. I says, well, okay, I understand your philosophy on that. That's your viewpoint, but the book has nothing to do with God, nor does it have to do with Lucifer. It just tells you about the monster next door to you and to be aware. Again, right. I find that, her negatives with my positives. I try to put positives into everything. And criticism, I had one author tell me, as long as you write story, that's what matters. And those that gives you the criticism and as a critic, all they're trying to do is critique your work because they have nothing better to do. And I love that philosophy.
Everybody's got an opinion, so yeah. I mean, you're right. And the certain segments, people do want to come at you with the religious angle.
Yes.
Spirituality exists in many different forms, and you can speak a piece about it, but then leave people alone. I mean,
and that's what I do. And I told him, I says, I understand it, and I keep bringing up to her, 30-day guarantee. You can take the book back if you're not happy.
Well, some people are just trying to make another point, and it's not even about your work. It's about they don't like the dark culture aspect of any of it, and that reflection of society. And
I kind of probably I may have made her mad a little bit. She's like, well, she brought in about loose or not. What'd she say? The devil must have possessed you. I said, so you're saying Lucifer, right? And she goes, well, yeah, he's just. I said, wasn't he cast out of heaven? And she couldn't say anything more. I said, well, why don't we talk about Michael or Gabriel? And she couldn't talk no more. So I haven't heard from her since I started basically coming back at her, but I wasn't trying to do it in a hurtful way. By all means, I don't want to offend nobody.
Well, but, as the former mayor of hell, you're doing just fine. You're doing good. Yeah.
So, and I try to bring, like I said, the positive back with stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, exactly. You're not advocating for it. You're writing a story about it. It is,
exactly. If you wanted to be honest, I could have, talked about what's his name, the Night Stalker. I could have talked about Ramirez. I could have, any of those. But I chose what I chose. Since nobody that has ever heard of this guy, and like I said, he's the guy next door. Look.
Yeah.
And You know, he didn't look like Charles Manson or those other two gentlemen I mentioned. And I call these guys gentlemen because at one time they probably were nice men. Maybe.
Maybe.
You know,
Yeah.
Dahmer, maybe in the beginning he was a nice guy. But how they turned into the monsters that they became, it's because they got away with it for so long.
Yeah, nobody was really paying attention to him when he
No.
needed it when he was younger.
Yes.
Doesn't
Yes.
excuse everything else, but there are some markers
There
from
was
when he
warning
was very
signs.
young. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. That's what this whole book's about, is the potential to, if you see the signs, act upon it,
Right.
investigate it, find out why, do something about it. But we know how the history went on that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up. I want to thank you for being here with me tonight. Finally, we'll bring you back on as you get the other books out and everything.
That'd be wonderful. I'd be so happy to come back on.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being on tonight. I'm glad we finally got our crap together.
All right.
We got it out here for everybody. And thank you all for showing up tonight. Much appreciated as always. Nina, I'm gonna go back to the single shot here again. But thank you again, everybody. A nice round of applause for Nina Ayers with Joy of Murder. Go get yourself a copy now. Leave her a nice review if you like the book.
Thank you.
You are welcome. I will talk to you soon, probably in a 3-hour post interview. I don't know.
Maybe not tonight.
Right. I'm just kidding anyway. All right. Anyway, thank you so much. What am I doing? Okay. I got it now. And thank you. Much success with the book. We'll be checking back in. All right.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Hello. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us tonight. Where am I at? All right. I do want to remind you that I thank you all for being here again. And we'll be back on with other dark, sticky fun soon. Where the heck is it? Where are we? Come on. Where are we going? All right. Come on. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Bang. There's the QR code. If you'd like to support the channel and the show, all these fun live streams I bring you, this QR code will take you to my links page. And on there, you can watch my movie Dark Realm. You can get a DVD copy. Again, physical media for all of us weirdos who love to collect that stuff. You can find some of my other channels and socials and merch. You can go get yourself some Fitzgerald's Realm and Dark Realm merch in the store in there, as well as it takes you to my website. So grab a nice shot of that, the QR code. I want to go down. Speaking of merch, our good friend Maria from Tea and Telly. This is her right there. Go watch Tea and Telly. Subscribe to her channel on Tubius Ubius and watch her shows. She is super awesome, very sweet. She won a Dark Realm kind of classic logo, triangle shield logo hoodie. Where am I at? There we go. And you can see her right there looking very lovely. She sent me that picture in. She won that. We launched those, and those are in there for you too. So there she is. So subscribe to her. Watch her show. She's very excellent. And we'll have her on the show sometime soon as well. So let me get out of there. Very good. And thank you all again so much. We'll have Morgoth back to run the machinery next time. So I'm not popping in and out of camera on you. I hope you're all having an excellent start to your year. And we'll be back with more dark, sticky fun very soon. Thank you and hello.